This is NBC Nightly News, Tuesday, April 15th, with John Chancellor reporting from the NBC News Center in New York.
Good evening. The Senate Foreign Relations Committee this afternoon completed the first draft of legislation which would give the president a $200 million emergency fund for evacuating Americans from Saigon and some South Vietnamese. The committee says the draft is tentative, but Secretary of State Kissinger indicated it would be acceptable to Mr. Ford. The proposed legislation would also allow American troops to safeguard the evacuation. This came on a day when Kissinger and Defense Secretary Schlesinger were on Capitol Hill arguing for more military aid for Saigon. At one point, Schlesinger spoke of more than 1 million South Vietnamese who might be slaughtered in a North Vietnamese takeover. Catherine Mackin has more on today's appearances by Schlesinger and Kissinger.
Outside, the familiar lines of spectators gathered as they did in the 60s when the Vietnam War was the national obsession. Inside, Dr. Kissinger repeatedly emphasized this country has a moral obligation to South Vietnam, and failure to grant the aid would damage our credibility around the world.
We have no intention of getting ourselves involved again in the war in Vietnam under any conceivable authority that would be granted. And we would accept any restrictions that would make that very clear. The United States has no legal obligations to the government and the people of South Vietnam of which the Congress is not aware. But we do have a deep moral obligation. The nation that has spent 10 years in a country that has lost tens of thousands of people there, and in which has a responsibility also for the fate of millions that relied on it, that nation cannot simply walk away in the hour of travail.
At the Armed Services Committee, Defense Secretary James Schlesinger testified that without American aid, South Vietnam cannot survive. But he said with the aid, they do have a chance.
This continues to be a nation that is fighting for its existence against external aggression, about which there is no longer any doubt in anybody's mind. This is the most dramatic a case of external aggression, at least since 1950 and possibly since 1940.
Meantime, the Senate Foreign Relations Committee worked up a proposal for a $200 million evacuation fund the president could use to rescue Americans. The committee acted after the White House guaranteed the Americans left in Vietnam will be quickly reduced to about 1,000. Senator Humphrey said the fund could not be used for military purposes except to protect Americans.
There is the suggestion of a contingency fund that the president can use for the purposes of humanitarian assistance and withdrawal programs in the emergency situation in South Vietnam.
Many here believe that the evacuation fund, along with some humanitarian aid, is the total of what Congress will give the South Vietnamese out of the $1 billion President Ford requested. What it amounts to is a compromise that de-emphasizes military aid. Catherine Mackin, NBC News, at the Capitol.
Senator John McClellan, chairman of the Appropriations Committee, has supported the war in Vietnam, but today he said there is no hope by additional military aid of saving South Vietnam. McClellan says he does not oppose humanitarian aid, which gives added weight to the feeling that the Congress will not vote money for arms, but will approve funds for non-military help and for evacuation. In Hanoi today, the government radio said that if the Americans in South Vietnam leave at once, the North Vietnamese will guarantee their safe passage. Also on the program this evening, we'll take a look at the military situation along the main road east of Saigon in South Vietnam. We've also been checking into the price of food in supermarkets around the country, and we have what we think is some encouraging news this evening from the Middle West. And this being the 15th of April, we'll have a report on how we paid our federal income taxes this year. For reasons which Irving R. Levine will explain, it wasn't a normal year, tax-wise. Those stories and others in a moment.
If you told me a year ago I'd be using Bank America, I believe in paying with cash, but you never know. It's getting tougher to get a check cashed, especially weekends. And Bank America is really just another way of paying for things.
Well,
this be cash or card?
Bank Americard. I don't use a card all the time, but sometimes just having it makes all the difference.
I smell clean. I smell clean. With Lifebuoy, I smell clean.
Hi, Daddy.
Hi.
Daddy, won't any soap get you clean?
Sure, but it's not enough to be clean. You gotta smell clean. That's why I use Lifebuoy. So, I smell clean.
Lifebuoy deodorant soap. It's not enough to be clean. You gotta smell clean.
Daddy, you really do smell clean. Now, where's my present?
More than half of the South Vietnamese Air Force was grounded today, and a couple of planes were lost because the North Vietnamese hit the big Air Force base at Bien Hoa with mortars and heavy artillery. And the Battle of Xuan Loc goes on about 40 miles east of Saigon. Today, South Vietnamese forces ran into heavy North Vietnamese opposition when they attacked, and the battle, which is now a week old, is still regarded as a standoff. Between Saigon and Xuan Loc, the North Vietnamese have cut Highway 1. The South Vietnamese are determined to clear that road, and here's a report from Don Harris on Highway 1.
M48 tanks moving up Highway 1 this morning were just one of the indications that the South Vietnamese are beginning a major attack to clear a 10-mile stretch of Highway 1 leading to Xuan Loc. Troops were moving up, too. Troops from the 5th Division to reinforce those of the 18th Division already fighting along the highway. Artillery fire, heavy artillery fire, was being laid down by the South Vietnamese. Word along the highway was that airborne troops, now in Xuan Loc, were pushing westward toward Saigon, and that this artillery unit and others along Highway 1 were softening up enemy positions so that 5th Division Rangers could push eastward to join the airborne. The commander of this artillery unit said that the fighting was heavy, but he believed the South Vietnamese Rangers and airborne were only about 10 miles apart. If they can close that gap and link up their forward units, then Xuan Loc can be resupplied by road, a major tactical advantage. It would also be another morale booster added to the Battle of Xuan Loc. Don Harris, NBC News on Highway 1.
The South Vietnamese government denied today a report in Time magazine that President Nguyen Van Thu tried to ship 16 tons of gold worth $73 million to Switzerland. But the airline named in the story said it had been asked to fly the gold out of the country, and, as related in Time, it refused. In Cambodia, the Khmer Rouge rebels say they have occupied the airport at Phnom Penh and are penetrating deep into the city. Other reports indicate that government troops are holding on. But it looks as though the city is lost. A press plane chartered in Saigon flew over Phnom Penh today, and here's what the city looked like from the air. It's possible to fly fairly low over Phnom Penh, and when the plane made its run over the city today, the cameraman saw part of a bridge down in the Tonle Sap River. You see it there. Things seemed quiet in Phnom Penh. This is the Hotel Le Phnom, which has become the center for most foreigners in Phnom Penh. Reporters say that the International Red Cross has been asked to make the hotel a safe zone, but we don't know if that's been done. At 5 o'clock Eastern Time today, the United Press International received the following message from its bureau in Phnom Penh, reading, "Situation seems to be very critical and unsure there will be any more messages because of circuit break. SOS." There are reporters and cameramen still in Phnom Penh, Sidney Schanberg of the New York Times among them. There's a West German camera crew in Phnom Penh, and they have managed to get some film out of the city. We asked our correspondent, Jack Reynolds, who has recently been in Phnom Penh, to look at the film, and this is what he finds on it.
Government armor is still trying to keep the approaches to Phnom Penh's airport open, but the airport is now part of the front line, and the crews of the armored personnel carriers are reluctant to drive there. The insurgents have already cut the main road to the airport, so the remaining government armor now operates between the city and Po Chin Tong Airport. Refugees fleeing from the fighting are moving closer to Phnom Penh, causing more problems for the capital. Since the American airlift stopped, the city's food supplies have dwindled to a critical level. The rebels have discouraged Buddhism, Cambodia's national religion. Among the refugees are monks. They've left their temples and are now headed for the doubtful safety of Phnom Penh. Casualties continue heavy. Government hospital facilities are limited, medical supplies are running out, and a high percentage of the wounded die because of inadequate care. Radio contact has been lost with several frontline units. As the enemy moves closer to the city and government resistance crumbles, it appears as though Cambodia's long agony may be almost over. Jack Reynolds, NBC News.
President Ford said today that the United States will emerge from its experience in Indochina stronger and wiser. The president spoke in Washington before the Daughters of the American Revolution. He said that talk that this country's best years are behind it is nonsense, and he pledged to keep the United States militarily strong.
I smell clean. Whoa! I smell clean. Whoa! With Lifebuoy, I'm not just clean. I smell clean. Whoa!
He's gone bananas.
You know, getting me Lifebuoy was terrific. Now, one morning shower, and I'm not only clean. I smell clean. Whoa!
Lifebuoy deodorant soap. It's not enough to be clean. You gotta smell clean.
Oh, hey, you really do smell clean.
Want to meet the real life of the party? It's right here. Carrier's Roundwind. The most attractive central air conditioning unit you can buy, and one of the most efficient. Fact is, if all the others in the country ran as efficiently as this one, there will be enough electricity saved this year, we estimate, to power Los Angeles every night for 6 months. To find out what the Roundwind can save you, call your Carrier dealer.
The Big Four automakers reported sales in early April today. Chrysler is down 37% from the same period last year. General Motors is down 34%. Ford down 14%, and American Motors down 22%. Also down, industrial production, 1% in March for the 6th straight month, but that is the smallest drop since last October. And something else is going down, at least in some places, grocery prices. Rebecca Bell reports from Chicago on that story.
Stock clerks in some Chicago supermarkets have been called in on overtime to reprice items throughout the store. And this time, the prices are going down. In at least 2 major chains, down by 10 to 12%. What's even better news is that Chicago supermarket executives see this as a trend, not a temporary price war. One executive called it the end of the inflationary spiral in food. Another agrees that wholesale prices are down and consumers should be able to count on lower retail prices.
We're also predicting some degree of stability in these products that you can plan on for a period of time, the more staple items, which will allow us then to plan and do the kind of a job that we're doing today.
The lower prices started Monday when one Chicago chain ran ads cutting prices on 2,000 items. Today, another major chain, with stores in 5 states, announced cuts on 3,000 items. For the consumer, it's at least one bright spot in the economy.
I think it's wonderful, really, for those that want to eat.
Rebecca Bell, NBC News, Chicago.
What I give you?
However, that downward trend could be affected by the farm bill Congress is about to pass. The bill would raise dairy price supports and price floors for cotton, wheat, and corn this year. Today, a Senate House Conference Committee took less than 2 hours to approve the House version of the bill. President Ford has not yet decided whether he will approve it or veto it. Both sides rested today in the bribery trial of John Connally. Prosecution and defense sum up tomorrow, and then the judge will charge the jury, and the jury will decide whether Connally did accept a $10,000 bribe in return for backing an increase in milk price supports. Carl Stern reports.
Connally arrived with his lawyer for cross-examination. By day's end, the prosecution had wounded Connally for the first time, though it was not clear how deeply. Assistant Special Prosecutor Frank Turkheimer confronted Connally with omissions and misstatements in his grand jury testimony. For example, Connally had overlooked telling the grand jury of an important meeting he had with confessed briber Jake Jacobson. At one point, defense lawyer Edward Bennett Williams tried to rescue Connally, accusing Turkheimer of mutilating the grand jury testimony the way he was reading it. Connolly offered a variety of explanations, including that he hadn't really prepared for the testimony since he knew he hadn't done anything wrong. Connolly added, "I thought the stories that were circulating were manufactured just to do me political damage. I didn't think they'd amount to a hill of beans. Never in my wildest nightmares could I have imagined I'd be sitting here today." No further witnesses were called. The lawyers finished up a few technical points. There was no big ending to the case. Tomorrow, each side will make a closing argument. The jury could get the case by late tomorrow or Thursday. In a technical sense, the jury won't be asked whether Connolly is guilty or not, but rather whether the government has proven its case. Carl Stern, NBC News, Washington.
3 federal appeals judges in Omaha ruled today that the Agriculture Department will have to put off for at least 45 days its plan to regrade beef, or until a lawsuit is settled. Some consumer groups think the department's plan would cause people to pay more for beef of lower quality.
If you've given up the best part of breakfast because of cholesterol and animal fat, try this.
From Morningstar Farms.
Good food with no cholesterol, no animal fat. The links and patties taste like sausage. The slices taste like ham. Morningstar Farms, textured vegetable protein. Good food with no cholesterol, no animal fat.
New from Morningstar Farms.
In your grocer's freezer.
Your Hoover dealer's putting on quite a show. It's the Hoover Double Feature Sale, and it's a smash hit. When you buy a Hoover Dial-O-Matic, Celebrity, convertible, or portable vacuum from your Hoover dealer, you get direct from the Hoover factory your choice of a Hoover blender, tricycle toaster, or steam iron for only $12.50. That's a 50% savings. You get a great vacuum cleaner plus an appliance at half price. The Hoover Double Feature Sale. See your Hoover dealer for details today.
In Lebanon today, Palestinian commandos and Lebanese phalangists battled one another for a third day in Beirut and in Tripoli. Some estimates of the death toll in those cities and in Sidon in the past few days put it at more than 80 people dead and more than 100 people have been wounded. John Palmer reports.
After the second night of explosions and gunfire, Beirut streets, normally crowded with businessmen, vendors, and tourists, were all but deserted. Small arms fire could still be heard in several sections of the city. Roadblocks have been set up on many streets in the capital in an effort to contain the armed clashes between Palestinians and members of the right-wing Phalangist party. Thus far, the Lebanese army has remained in its barracks, fearing their presence would further inflame the situation. But special police squads are manning some of the checkpoints with tanks. The Phalangists have barricaded themselves into a half-square-mile section of the city. Relations between the Phalangists and Palestinian guerrillas have been strained in recent years, with the Phalangists objecting to the presence of some 12,000 heavily armed Palestinian guerrillas in the country. Lebanese government officials have held numerous meetings trying to halt the fighting, but they have had little apparent success. It's difficult to know the precise number of dead and injured. The government puts the figure at about 40. Others say the death toll is double that. It's impossible to estimate the amount of property damage that has occurred in 3 days of fighting, but it has been considerable.
This latest armed clash between the two groups underscores the tensions that exist here in Lebanon between the Christian and Muslim communities. Religious and government leaders are trying to mediate this dispute, hoping to keep it from escalating into a wider clash between the predominantly Christian Phalangist party and the Muslim community, which is more sympathetic to the Palestinians. John Palmer, NBC News, Beirut.
Israel celebrated its 27th anniversary today after nationwide mourning for the 10,000 Israelis who have died in 4 wars against the Arabs. The Army Chief of Staff, General Mordecai Gur, assured the country that Israel has a lot of new weapons and will not be caught unprepared as it was in the October 1973 war. Steve Delaney reports on some of those Israeli weapons.
The Israelis believe that their Fear, or Young Lion, is a marked improvement over the French Mirage from which it developed. It's bigger, faster, and carries more destruction. Defense Minister Shimon Peres said Israel now produces 1/3 of the arms it needs, and that this plane reduces some of this country's dependence on American weapons.
Until quite recently, there were good diplomatic and political reasons for not announcing the existence of this aircraft. Those reasons don't apply anymore, in part thanks to the strained relationship with the United States over weapons acquisitions. So in aircraft, as well as in other weapons systems, the Israelis must do all they can to be self-sufficient. And it is a tremendous undertaking. This is a graveyard for useless tank hulls. At least it would be in any other country. Here, it's the source of raw materials for what's been called the biggest tank reclaiming operation in the world. Old American tanks go through here, as well as armor retired from the British Army and Russian T-model tanks captured in the last 2 wars. They're taken down to the bare steel shells and then rebuilt from scratch. A lot of them, like these T-55s on duty in the Sinai Desert, are part of Israel's frontline defense against another war. The U.S. is still the major source of Israeli weapons, especially in the Air Force. In spite of today's addition to the Air Wing, Israelis rely on American Phantoms and Skyhawks, and on American missiles and electronics. That's why this country is so deeply concerned that the diplomatic squabble will affect arms shipments from the States. Steve Delaney, NBC News, Tel Aviv.
Citizens of the tiny Himalayan kingdom of Sikkim voted today to end their 300-year-old monarchy and merge with India. The vote was no surprise. India has long been pressuring Sikkim for just such action. And when China rebuked India today, Prime Minister Indira Gandhi reminded the Chinese that they had taken over Tibet.
Grandma!
Hi, darling.
Your hair's different. It's so pretty.
Well, I use Johnson's baby shampoo like you.
Oh.
When I saw my hair getting dull and lifeless, I said, it needs a little babying with a gentle shampoo. And Johnson's can't even harm a baby's eyes.
Your hair's so shiny, Grandma.
If your hair is losing its young, lively look, baby it with Johnson's baby shampoo from Johnson & Johnson.
One way for the trucking industry to use energy more efficiently is to have lighter, stronger trucks. So at United States Steel, we developed this prototype truck frame. It will reduce vehicle weight while actually increasing strength. This unique truss design uses less material to produce a stronger truck frame. And its lighter weight will result in fuel savings on the road. That's productivity. At United States Steel, we're involved.
Morning, Tom. Pounding that pavement yesterday sure got me, George. This nagging backache ruined my sleep.
Here, start taking these this morning.
Dome's pills?
They sure help me.
When nagging backache due to overexertion or everyday stress and strain comes on, Doan's pain-relieving action often brings temporary relief and lets you get a good night's sleep.
How's the back, Tom?
Good.
Oh, great.
Try Doan's pills for relief of nagging backache.
Students went on strike today for 1 week at one of the Ivy League schools, Brown University in Providence, Rhode Island. The issue was the high cost of learning, and Robert Hager has the story.
Inflation and recession have hit the Ivy League, and students at Brown are upset. By next year, it'll cost $6,000 a year to go to Brown. And the university has proposed an austerity budget, cutting some student services and reducing the amount of some scholarships. As a result, students voted last night to strike. Today, one explained why.
As long as they insist on reducing financial aid, on reducing student services, and on reducing junior faculty, we think that the heart of this university will be destroyed.
But there are reasons for the cuts, according to University President Donald Hornig.
Inflation, the rising costs of oil and energy, a falling stock market, all have cut into our income. And in the past 7 years, we've dug some $25 million into our endowment. It's pretty difficult.
Classes were held today, but more than 75% of the students stayed away.
The problem, I think, is that we have a generation which for 15 of its 20 years grew up in a can-do atmosphere when everything was getting better and doesn't really know the sense of austerity yet.
I'm supporting myself now, and my wife and I will be next year, and our parents don't have enough money at this point to contribute anything. And if my father's business does well, which it might, then I may be all right. If it doesn't, if they don't give me financial aid, I can't come here.
A lot of students just won't be able to afford to come back next year. That's why I'm striking.
Students here plan to continue their classroom boycott at least through the end of this week. But university administrators say there's not much they can do about Brown's financial problems felt by many universities today. Robert Hager, NBC News at Brown University in Providence, Rhode Island.
A judge in East Haven, Connecticut, ordered the school board there to reopen the schools tomorrow. The school board shut them down yesterday, saying it didn't have the money to keep them open. Borrow the money, the judge ordered the board and town officials, and they said they would. The amount needed comes to more than $300,000. And while we're on the subject of money, midnight tonight is the deadline for Americans to get their income tax returns in. For reasons no one's ever quite been able to figure out, Americans rush to pay their taxes the way lemmings are said to rush into the ocean to drown. The lemming legend may not be true, but the American phenomenon is, and Irving R. Levine has more on that.
Fewer Americans waited until the last minute this year to mail in their tax returns. The number of returns filed so far is running about 5% ahead of last year, and the tax commissioner says part of the reason is the recession.
I think there was one of the factors causing us to get in more returns earlier than we have ever done before. Many people were entitled to refunds. They submitted their returns early. They had time to work on them because they were out of a job and they needed that money.
To get money back, some people went to revenue offices today for help on the complex returns.
Okay, this should be 381 in here.
If taxpayers found this year's tax forms complicated, wait until next year. This is a draft of next year's Form 1040, the basic individual income tax return. The tax commissioner says that it will be more complicated because Congress has made the law more complicated. And unless Congress simplifies the tax laws, there's no way the Internal Revenue Service can simplify the tax forms. Irving R. Levine, NBC News, Washington.
And good night for NBC News.
There you are, sir. 2 tickets to Tucson, boarding at gate 2 in,
2 minutes?
You got it.
Miss, does Listerine antiseptic remind you of any number?
Yeah, 2.
What else?
That is, it lasts 2 times longer. Listerine kills germs.
Kills what?
The germs that can cause bad breath. And it gives me clean breath that lasts 2 times longer than the leading sweet-tasting mouthwash.
How many times longer than this?
2.
2. Like in me and you?
No.
For clean breath that lasts 2 times longer, Listerine.
This is my mother. But a lot of my friends tell me, your mom doesn't look old enough to have a daughter your age.
Well, I do try to take care of myself. I get my rest, exercise, and I take a Geritol tablet every day to be sure I get the iron and vitamins I need.
Geritol, more than twice the iron of any ordinary supplement and some very important vitamins.
And Debbie, you can tell your friends that your mother married very young.
Virginia Hill was a girl with a dream. What she got was Bugsy Siegel, the tumultuous headline-making story of Virginia Hill and Bugsy Siegel. Diane Cannon is Virginia Hill, tonight at 8:30, 7:30 Central.
Do you have any last requests, senor?
Yes, a cup of American Ace coffee.
We don't have this American Ace coffee.
If I don't get American Ace coffee, I'm going back to bed.
If you don't get American Ace coffee, go back to bed.
I support pantyhose. Look it. Oh.
With Burlington Champagne Patios of Montville, the support is invisible.
Burlington.
My pantyhose let my tummy bulge. Yuck. Burlington Control Top Pantyhose are engineered to hold your hips and tummy in.
Burlington. My knee highs